Buckle up, you're ready for this check. Hit one. Tittikkum mudadaga thenana inithide thanimiga thirumaga naade. Iru karangalum iravilum ganathide kuda urupugal urugudu guruvade. Kaalathal pirikka mudiyadhu emathu kaada kavi needodi valga. Sokkathin uchathe imbathu michathai vaakkiyin naththai madiyinu theda. Enakulla oru kaada mirugam ondu urangi kidakkathu galupigidare. Thirumagale gunadegale kathithikenu irugu
Okay, Sangeeta, we can start, right? All right, you're on mute. So first and foremost, everyone, a memorable International Women's Day. And on behalf of GS Lab and GAVS, we sincerely thank you for this opportunity to hear all of you. I had the occasion to speak with some of you from time to time. And I will tell you that as an organization, we genuinely value this, not from any other reason, but 50% of the workforce are women. And what we've seen, they bring in tremendous amount of stability. And there is a lot of left brain and right brain focus. And I think to a fault, a lot of companies which leverage India tend to be a little more male dominated because it becomes more convenient. We've decided that it is extremely important for us to be an organization that's purposeful, an organization that is caring and empathetic, and really want to enhance the femininity of our organization. So for many years now, we have been celebrating the International Women's Day, and this has become an important event. So wanted to introduce the esteemed panel. I'll start with Ashima Gupta. Ashima, thank you very much again. And what I'll do is I'll keep the introductions very brief because I'll have you talk about it. But she's one of the directors at Google, overseeing healthcare. She has 2 patents to her name and has done extensive amount of work on AI and ML. And I did say it earlier and she was bashful, but genuinely, Ashima, you are a name to be reckoned with in the healthcare technology sector, especially this work of transforming technology in the cloud. So thank you again for joining us. Erin Rani, some of you should watch her YouTube video. Erin, again, is a technologist, and she is a 5G and telecom expert at T-Mobile. And she's out of Seattle, 2 kids and parent and family. So again, Erin, thank you so very much for joining us. Maninder Bahia is out of Denver. She is right now with Frontier Airlines. And we at GS Lab GAVS are privileged that we've been working with Frontier Airlines for the last 10, 12 years. But very recently, Maninder and her team and leaders, including the CEO, Barry Beffel, have decided to sign a multi-year, 7-year engagement with GS Lab GAVS, where we are planning to do some large transformational work. And that's under Maninder's project management. She was with Boeing prior to this. Bessa is almost doing God's work at Jewish Board. Jewish Board provides behavioral health support to some of the largest cross-section of privileged and underprivileged in New York. She again has multiple degrees from NYU, a doctorate in social health, and comes from Northern Macedonia. I was fascinated listening to Madhumita Sarkar. Madhumita runs cybersecurity at Englewood Health, and she again is an artist. And what's interesting is that she is basically commercializing and monetizing her art to fund her social welfare pursuit. I love that about Madhumita. So thank you so very much. I don't think I missed any of the other panelists here. And more important, our keynote is Nandita Bakshi. I have had the privilege of getting to know Ms. Bakshi now the last 3-4 years. I find her a very fascinating leader, one of the most articulate and soaring vision, but more important, Nandita, the sharing of your story, that from an entry level position as a first generation immigrant at a bank, and then taking it to become the CEO, and if I may, being able to engineer almost a $16.1 billion sale to Bank of Montreal of Bank of the West, is a fascinating story. I've been goading her that I think the world needs to have her book, and would love to listen more to her. So she's our keynote. Some of our other leaders here, panelists, are of course my colleague Rajalakshmi, who runs uh, corporate strategy for me. Sangeeta and Rachna are our global HR leader. Manisha Deshpande runs our independent software. Rajashri Jog is a very senior leader, has been in the industry now for almost 18 plus years out of Seattle, running our technology. Sandra is our HR leader, working with Sangeeta and team, and Somika runs marketing communication. So would you all join me in welcoming Nandita Bakshi to deliver the keynote for 2024 International Women's Day. Once again, Nandita, thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Ganguly, and it's an absolute privilege to be here with such an amazing panel of women. As you were going through the introduction, I just couldn't be just beaming with joy for even participating on this occasion, on this panel with the others. I also want to congratulate you. What a wonderful way to celebrate women, and the fact that you have close to 50% or over 50% of your workforce as women. That's just music to my ears. So congratulations, and I'm very, very happy to be here. Thank you so much for inviting me. My journey is one of, I would say, an accidental banker. My education is not in finance or marketing, so I didn't come here as first-generation immigrant to be a banker. But I started out as a part-time teller in Albany, New York, in a little mall location bank branch, because I didn't know what else to do. But while I didn't want to join banking or had no expectations of being a banker, I stayed in banking because I truly believe it's a noble profession. I believe that banking propelled society, by transforming it, by financing different aspects of society, and we help people, businesses, corporations. So I stayed in banking because I loved what banks did for the society. I also loved the fact that it was a people business. We're people serving people. Banks don't make computers, they don't make cars. It's a service industry. And very similar to what your organization is doing, Mr. Ganguly, we support the organizations, we support people. So I stayed in banking for primarily those two reasons. And while I started out as a teller and I spent so many years being in the branches, I feel that gave me a great foundation of who the customer was and how we needed to serve the customer, and the communities we served in was so important. So while I spent the first 7 years in the branch banking system, I quickly moved over to payments, to product, to technology, to internet banking. I feel like I've done it all. I've also moved around quite a bit. I've been in several different states. Seattle's one of them. You mentioned it. I've been in Boston. You mentioned that too. I've also been in LA, in Ohio, and now, of course, in New Jersey. And then right as the CEO of Bank of the West, I was in San Francisco. And I would say that what has driven my career is when you're 10,000 miles away from your birth country, you go where the challenge is, you go where the opportunity is. And I have really honed in and taken advantage of that. I have made lateral moves in my time. I've taken jobs that I've done, but I've done it again for a larger organization. I've never shied away from lateral moves. And I feel that that's truly expanded my horizon. And it's given me ability, competency, strengths that I wouldn't have had if I had kind of gone up the ladder in a very linear manner. I've also kind of digressed from banking and taken on a mobile commerce role. I'm a managing director for First Data Mobile Commerce in Stuttgart, Germany, and I did that for 2 years. Very, very interesting experience there. I've also worked pro bono for microfinance organizations in India, helping women get small loans to start businesses. So while I've been in traditional banking, I've also digressed from banking, and I feel that really has given me a tremendous amount of experience. And you mentioned Bank of the West. I would say the best job I've had was heading up Bank of the West. I started there back in 2016, and we sold the bank to BMO, and the deal was consummated in 2023. And I'm very proud of what the team was able to achieve at Bank of the West. We truly transformed that organization, and we took it from a good bank to a very highly profitable, purpose-driven, values-driven organization where people, 10,000 employees, came together to serve our customers, to serve our communities, and have fun. We became the leading sustainable bank in the country. We had very strong policies, ESG policies, where we did not lend to coal, we did not lend to tobacco, palm oil, shale oil, tar sands. And while that made us popular in California and Oregon and Seattle, it did not make us popular in some of the Midwestern states. And, it's okay. You take that on and you do business. And so I would say the job at Bank of the West was truly an amazing, amazing job. And we got accolades. We were named as the best bank for women, for LGBTQ, and for diversity. So we not only produced a very highly profitable organization that literally doubled its NIBT in 6 years, and to your point, sold to BMO at a 30% premium on the valuation or the current valuation, but we were also recognized for being a very good culture, a very strong bank from a value and purpose perspective. And then, of course, BMO happened, and I couldn't tell you how proud I am of how the merger went through. Again, we had to wait for 13 months to get approval from the Fed. That was a difficult period to manage 10,000 employees where they didn't know if they had jobs, the businesses would be kept or not, the customers were not sure. But just to manage through that transition, that period of uncertainty, that period of ambiguity was interesting. It was difficult, but you lean in and you kind of make sure that you connect with people. And what's very interesting is during this period, we went out and surveyed our colleagues on a monthly basis just to see how their health was in terms of, how they're thinking about the bank, their engagement level, their knowledge about BMO. And I'm very proud to say we scored high 80s in terms of engagement during that period of uncertainty. A few words of wisdom, if I may. I would say that some of the things that have helped me is, like I mentioned, I've made lateral moves. I have also been, really focused on being an empathetic leader. And you mentioned it, Mr. Ganguly. I believe that is so important in today's day and age. It's so important to create a safe environment where employees feel that you have their back. They'll work hard. They'll work extremely hard if they feel that you trust them, that if you feel that you can connect with them, you inspire them. And so that has been a hallmark, I would say, of my leadership style, and it's served me well. The other thing that I've done, especially as coming up to the ranks, was I had a rule of thirds that I have employed, and it's really helped me in my profession. Whenever I've taken a job, I've said, a third of it has to be comfortable so that I can sleep at night and wake up in the morning and say, yes, I can get this done. The second third has to be somewhat challenging, something I can learn and grow into, but not extremely difficult. And the last third, the last bit, has to be white knuckle stress. And I feel that every time I've taken up a job and I've really leaned into the last third, I have grown. And I say that, and especially as I talk to women and mentor women, I feel that women need to be more in P&L jobs, and they need to hone in on that last third to make sure that they're taking risk, that they're working hard, that they're striving for excellence. Today is the day for the fearless girl. Today is all about courage, all about celebrating our accomplishments. We've made tremendous progress, but there's still work that needs to be done. And I, again, congratulate you for having this forum, for having us speak about how important it is for women to be in senior positions, to have a voice, not just in executive positions, but also in boards, also in the community. So with that, back to you, Mr. Ganguly.
Thank you. First of all, it's Sumit, Nandita. Thank you. Question. I think we are all products of our own anxiety. And you were at WAMU, and there was this whole existential crisis. And you survived that, and then you went back to work in India for a brief while. That would be interesting for people to know. How did you address adversity, which was kind of outside your control or sphere of control?
That's a great question. When I joined WAMU, this was back in 2008, there were signs of cracks already visible. And I was on the retail side. I was head of products, and I was head of the branch system. And we were actually the treasury, if you may, of the bank, because we were funding mortgages. That was a separate department of itself because it was a very large organization. So as you know, within a few weeks of joining, I knew this bank was not in a good shape. And I was talking to the regulators, I was talking to folks, and I had an option of quitting and finding another job. Or I had the option of making sure that I saw it through, that I did whatever was needed to make sure that their bank remained solvent for as long as it could. There were 53,000 employees of that bank. And, that to me was more important than what would happen to me, because I knew I would be okay after some time. And after the bank went down on 27th of September 2009, I did take time off, because I truly believe that once you're knocked down, you can count 10. You don't have to get up right away. So I felt I needed to do that. I needed to do some introspection. I wasn't even sure if I wanted to be in banking. So when I came back after 4 months, having spent time in India and worked with the microfinance organization, but also with my parents, I chose one of the safest banks in the country, TD Bank, to work for.
The other one, which I genuinely, as your cheerleader, and considering that I have known you, I'm very proud of, is how Bank Paribas decided to use a brown lady as their silhouette for sustainability and that whole poster. And would you talk a little bit about that? And that's especially for someone from Europe to kind of take that in from a sustainability point of view and have you as their literal poster child. I think that would be for all of us Indians to kind of hear a little bit about that.
Yeah, so I think it's the other way around. I think we as Bank of the West adopted the BNP Paribas ESG policy. Because, at Bank of the West, we were a $100 billion bank. That's not small, but it's not big. It's not big at all when you compare us to a JP Morgan or a Bank of America or even a Wells Fargo. And yet I was competing with them, those large banks, for business, for retail business, commercial business, small business, all of that, right? So I needed to have a brand, and I needed to have an edge. I needed to have a value proposition that was different from another bank. So I leveraged the BNP Paribas ESG policy, and being in California, being in Oregon, being in Washington, customers loved it. Individual customers, business customers absolutely loved it. To the extent that we became BNP Paribas, nobody took on ESG as well as Bank of the West did. So we became their cheerleader, and as a result, they adopted us. They took over our marketing, and our marketing became BNP Paribas marketing. But it was like we both needed each other. But it was literally started by my marketing team, because they said, now that is something we can leverage, because I can't say my internet banking is better than Chase's internet banking.
Very nice. And then they adopted a poster, right, where
Yes.
they had your silhouette instead of classic birds and everything else.
Yes.
So thank you very much. I'll open it up to the panel. Any questions of Nandita, Ashima, or Erin? Anything? I'll just take one question that you could ask of Nandita if you want to.
Can I go ahead, Sumit?
Yeah, please, Madhumita, please go ahead.
So it is a privilege to listen to you, Ms. Bakshi, and I'm so feeling glad that I'm on the same panel where you are the keynote speaker. So my question is, when sometimes we feel that we cannot make it happen just because the world is against us, though it is not the case in my life most of the cases, but many young leaders feel that. They feel that they are not given a fair chance in this world. How do we deal with that?
One thing that I would say becomes the hallmark of a true professional is grit and perseverance. Things are not going to go your way all the time. Mm-hmm. All you can do is work hard and try, and it pays off at the end. And also having the right mentors and advisors around you that will tell you the way it should be said, not what you want to hear. Right? I have really benefited from having my bosses, my existing bosses, old bosses, peers, people that worked for me, walk in, close the door, and say, "Hey, can I talk to you?" And be open to that. Right? I think it's a combination of things, but I would say the real strength of character, the grit, the perseverance will see you through.
Got it.
Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you. There's a great book from this professor at University of Penn on grit. Yes. I'll get that out, Madhumita. I'll invite Nandita. Would love for you to, if you could be with us for a while.
Sure.
Would love to invite the panel again. Ashima Gupta, Erin, Besa, Maninder, and Madhumita. And would love to start with similar. Would love for all of you to talk a little bit about yourselves, and we'll really try and keep it more interrupted. The thesis being, what defines you, Ashima, Maninder, Erin, Besa, and Madhumita? Where you are today, what were the inflection points? And then we'll talk a little bit about the hits and misses. So shall we start with you, Ashima, please?
Yeah, first of all, thank you for assembling this amazing set of women. Nandita, I didn't know I was at Valmo as well at one point. So if anything, our journeys are never a straight line, Sumit. So a brief introduction about myself. As you covered, I do our healthcare vertical in Google Cloud and driving our strategy for at the global level, including our GenAI strategy. And in this role, I collaborate with the industry. I collaborate with multiple different teams within Alphabet, and including Google research scientists, to apply their groundbreaking research within cloud. Our goal here is to really democratize access to these innovations to the ecosystem at large. And Google, as you know, 1 in 17 searches on Google are healthcare related. And was founded on the idea that bringing more information to more people improve lives on a vast scale. So with that inspiring a mission, it becomes kind of personal calling when we bring our whole self to work. And I am very fortunate to be in this space and time. And we know that healthcare breakthroughs, healthcare advances actually change the world and bring hope to humanity. And we believe in this moment in time, AI has the potential to be one of these breakthroughs. And what that means, thoughtful collaboration with the ecosystem. From my personal journey perspective, technology is something I have been passionate about for as long as I can remember. My passion in the field of computer science dates back to the days when my dad first exposed me to a local computer course and influenced me to get into comp science. And then, being I'm a Delhiite, I was in Delhi, and the labs there, when I was doing my bachelor's in computer science, were much colder. Um, they had the best AC system, so I spent a lot of time in the lab because Delhi's heat was terrible during the summer. And one thing led to another. I spent a lot of time and learned firsthand the aha moment as a creation. The writing my first program was, wow, that's where you move from being a consumer to being a creator. And this could be in different along the lines of your journey. That was what kind of attracted me, and I've stayed on. And having studied both my bachelor's and master's in computer science, one thing was clear, that technology can help solve problems. And I came to US in 1997, FinTech, Fidelity Investment, and that was pretty incredible journey for me. In fact, my only two patents are in the field of applying tech in the world of banking. And around 2008, sudden loss of my dad due to health reasons made me take a deeper look into what type of problems I want to help solve by leveraging technology. It really made me think about how should I spend my time going forward. Health is very personal. Healthcare is very personal. We all can relate to it at a level, and um, that required committing to a larger purpose. It can be your work in a very small way, but make a difference to help people lead healthier lives. And that's kind of my own personal journey and pivot from fintech to healthcare. And what I've learned so far are people are incredibly devoted to the cause. When you work in the healthcare community globally, it's actually a very, very small community. And over time, it requires to every one of us to be successful or be impactful in your work. You really need to go much above and beyond. You need to think about work, and that's where it doesn't feel like work, meaning you're doing it for a much larger purpose. You're committing yourself to a larger purpose, and that alignment to the mission is or a purpose is like unlike anything. So here I am, and we're continuing to advance. I built our cloud business in healthcare from ground up. We're a very small team. It's a very big business now. And now with generative AI, we are going even way above and beyond. In next 4 or 5 years, in every field, including healthcare, are going to be true transformation. Some things we know about today, some things yet to be figured out. So kind of leaning into that discomfort is the moment in time. And my whoever is listening, regardless of your background, technology is at the point it is being democratized in front of our eyes. We're all that expert. Like I had a computer science background, but in case even if you don't, now is the time. We all can be whoever we want to be, because you have a very powerful assistant here with generative AI to be your personal coach, to be your personal friend, to be your personal advisor. So take advantage of this moment in time. This is, in my career, internet was one, mobile was another, and this is a third one.
Very nice. Thank you. Thank you so much, Ashima. That's inspirational. I'll jump into the platform which will generate generative AI for all it's worth. Erin, one, you should plug your YouTube videos, and to tell us a little more about yourself, what makes you tick, and how did T-Mobile happen, and a little your vision on 5G and everything else, please, Erin.
Absolutely. Well, thanks to me, and thanks everybody again. So excited to be here today and to participate with this incredible panel of women. Yes, I'm work at T-Mobile. I have actually spent my entire career here at T-Mobile. It's just over 23 years. And I lead our technology innovation program and supporting facilities. So right now, I primarily am focusing on leveraging our innovation center and working with partners, developers, and kind of this larger ecosystem to really bring 5G to life and to create new solutions that obviously grow the business, but also, transform our world. And I know that sounds a little cheesy, but I think going back to, some of the themes that we've already heard today, being passionate about what you do and, getting to this point in my career, what I love about my job is I actually can make a difference. It goes beyond, the paycheck and the role and the position, but really thinking about, how can I make a difference in the world, and taking the skills that I have, the teams that I'm building, what kind of impact can I have? And so whether it is working with, some of these companies and healthcare solutions, when you think about 5G connectivity and providing access to new healthcare solutions, that's changing lives. But it's, 5G and connectivity hits every vertical when we think about what we can do. So that's what excites me, that I get to be a part of that. And that also I get to work with so many incredible people across the world. My career journey, my father inspired me to get into engineering. He came from very humble backgrounds and got his engineering degree and started his own company and was very successful. So since I can ever, little girl always said, get your engineering degree, get your technology, then you can do anything. I took his advice, finally admitted that to him, but I took his advice and appreciated that. And it gave me the foundation that opened a lot of doors for me in my career. And, that's the advice I give young girls and young women today. I work through some organizations like Ignite Worldwide. How do we help promote STEM? Girls, as I just say, I think when you think computer science or technology, there's perception of this persona or kind of what your career will look like. And I say, no, if you can do anything with a technology degree. So, and especially being a woman, there's so many opportunities. So again, it's another way that I'm able to leverage the program and the resources, whether it's bringing young girls into the innovation centers and mentoring them and trying to inspire them. So that's what makes me tick. It's, similar to many of you, it hasn't been an easy journey. I think, women, myself included, tend to always second guess ourselves. And confidence can be a challenge, especially when you don't see others like yourself in these roles or leaders. And, we still need to solve this. The numbers are not getting better with girls in STEM. As I move up in my career, I see fewer and fewer women still. So, we still have a huge opportunity, but, it's moments like this, this community, what we're doing today, that's going to help make a difference. So, again, very excited to be here and to have the opportunity to talk with everybody.
Very nice. We'll fly into frontier a little bit and push the frontiers, Maninder. Cheesy pun there, but very, very proud. I've always struck by Frontier Airlines and their whole plan to kind of have those exotic animals in their tail on the airline. And as I mentioned, you were one of our first few clients once we kind of took over from GADS. And so once again, thank you very much. And Maninder, your kids have been unbelievably well behaved, but if they would love to come in and say hello, they're very welcome. But you're on mute, Maninder.
They're actually already off to school, so that's why it's been quiet.
Okay, got it. Maninder, would love for people to hear a little bit about you, from Canada to Seattle to Denver. Would love to hear more about you, please, Maninder.
Yes, definitely. Thank you. First of all, thank you so much for putting this together. Very impressive for GABS and GS Labs to be doing this year over year and putting the focus on women, on just overall, we are equal, and keeping that focus there. Long term, I'll say, the goal for where we're headed is this becomes natural, just like Independence Day. Once we can get there, then I see us really making that true mark, that it's naturally discussed. We don't have to push it. Those conversations that you hear in the office of, why do you have to do that? Well, that's self-explanatory. For one, it may be self-explanatory. For another, it may not be. So getting to that focus. Now, I won't go through some of the background stuff, since Sumit, you shared a lot of that about, where I'm at Frontier Airlines and what I'm doing. I will talk about what defines Maninder. Where does Maninder come to be who she is today? And some of the things that many colleagues, many family members use the words with me is, you can be intimidating. You walk into a room and you intimidate people. And how do I become that? What made me that? And it really starts from my upbringing. And my mom comes from a family of 4 girls. She's the younger of 4 girls in India, state of Punjab. And when I was born, family members actually cried because I was a girl. And they used words like, oh, I'm sorry you have a girl. And my mom went in very strong. She's my daughter. That's my responsibility. Why are you crying? And at that point, my mother really set the stance for what she envisioned for me. And she really led by example by being that great leader every step of the way from a young age. In addition to that, I was born in a village in India and raised by my grandparents, doing the hour-plus bike ride commute to get to a bus stop, to go to a school. So that started at the age of 3, 4, which meant the regimen really kicked in. You have to get yourself there. And it became, that Marine-like, that military life very early on. And fast forward to 1994, my family immigrated to the US, to Seattle, and I immediately became the interpreter for my family, for my parents. So being the oldest, having 2 younger siblings, getting us enrolled into school, to doctor's appointments, to my parents going places, that was an automatic that just came, take charge. Wherever you go, take charge and get things going. So I would say that really defined me. And my mom, my dad, my grandparents, my siblings, my husband, my in-laws, friends, cousins, colleagues, all have been very integral in making me who I am, and continuing to support me, and hearing from them. It's amazing to see how you continue to grow and you don't take no for an answer. And it's taken me forward. And, even moving to the US and being the first girl, as I started to get older, becoming a teenager, then the questions of, oh, you're almost 18, it's time to get you married. Those conversations start. Then there I'm negotiating with my parents of, what am I willing to have? What am I not willing to have? My dad had health concerns, which led to more of the family discussions of, you're our responsibility. We need to get you married. We want you to be with someone who can take care of you. And at that time, I really took those questions as in, why does someone have to take care of me? Why can't I take care of myself? But I acknowledged those challenges that my parents were in, being both younger siblings, the family, all of my other cousins having been married that were girls. Why am I not married? And I'm only 17. So negotiating with my parents to say, okay, I get it. You want me to be married. Here's what I'm willing to accept in a spouse, and here is what I'm not willing to accept. These are, can we meet? And they agreed to meet me with those conditions. And at the age of 19, I met my husband. At the age of 20, I was married to him. And at the age of 22, I had my first kid. And at the age of 22 is when I also started my career at Boeing.
Wow.
So one of my first discussions that when I met my husband for the first time was, if you are looking for a wife that stays home and cooks for you and gives you babies, that is not me. That was the first way of how we started. So it really set the bar with him as well. And he really appreciated that I was straightforward. You know, he agreed to that. Fast forward, I decided to have kids. Now I have 3 kids. My oldest is 18, and then my daughter is 12, and my youngest is 10. Love them to death. Couldn't wish for them to not be around or anything else of that sort. And I can't see what my life would have been without it. But 35, 40 years ago, that's not what I first saw in my life. It was career oriented. I have visions, I have missions. I want to take control of myself. Coming from a background of women not having that respect, and I saw that having the financial stability for myself is what would give me that. So I focused on that if I want to be independent, that means I need to take charge of my career. And oh, by the way, yes, there is that family aspect, marriage, kids, in-laws, parents, all of those will also be taken care of alongside. So there's no compromise. And throughout my, last 20 years of being married and having kids, I've heard all kinds of things of, it must suck for you to be always on travel and not be at your kids' events. Oh, don't you hate that you can't be there? And I don't see it that way. I look at it as I want to raise my kids to be independent, but not to be relying on me. And how am I going to truly show it to them if I'm just saying it, but I'm not showing it in action? And that's been my mission and focus. And I'm proud to say that, I'm raising kids that are self-sufficient and independent. And many times they'll come to me with a problem and I'll say, what do you think we should do? And they'll answer for themselves because they know what mom's answer is going to be. Let's first figure it out.
Very nice. That's most authentic. And Mandar, I'll tell you something. You have a kindred spirit in Indra Nui, the former chairman CEO of Pepsi. I've had the privilege of knowing her quite well in a personal capacity, and of course her book. And she talks exactly what you're talking about, including Ursula Burns, who was the former CEO of Xerox. Some of you may have known of her. That it's all right not to attend all your children's programs. It's all right not to be the best mother. And Indra Nui actually speaks at length about this. And then I watched this fantastic French movie that I highly recommend, The Anatomy of the Fall. It's a French movie, and they kind of have a very interesting take on a relationship between husband and wife and time sharing. So highly recommend that. But that was a fantastic thesis, Mananda. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
I've often talked about it, and I've written about this whole concept of STEM to STEAM. My thesis has been science, technology, engineering, and math needs and arts to be brought in to really make a more holistic contribution to society. And if we can really bring in the left and the right brain, you kind of get more to happen. Ted Turner talks about it, that one of the key things that led to the success of CNN was the fact that he took classical arts and Latin, and that led him to have these big, hairy, audacious goals and go in for a fool's errand like creating CNN. Madhumita, you have absolutely been fascinating when I was listening to your background and your story. And I think people should know more about you and your small frame and a petite frame and large vision. I would love to know more about this, Madhumita.
Thank you, Sumit. First of all, I would like to thank you and your team to set it up. It takes a lot of effort to set up this kind of thing and encourage the young woman, especially like me, who is probably the first time talking to such forum. Thank you so much. And I would like to also thank you, because the men like you, many movement may not agree with me, but I have felt that in my life, that men like you and many in our life gives us the space, and then we know how to grow further. But when you give us the first step, and that's where it makes a difference. So thank you so much for that as well.
Thank you.
So how do I start? So let me tell you, I studied Bachelor of Science from Agriculture University of Kanpur. That is called Chandrasekhar Azad Agriculture University, but in the stream of home science. Can you believe, from there to be one of the cybersecurity expert? That is because I always wanted to do different. As a kid, I was a very timid, very simple, I was always afraid of loud voices, people yelling at me, because unfortunately, I had an abusive environment in the family. But my mom always supported me. She said, you can do everything you want to, dream big. And that's where I completed my bachelor's in home science, and then I enrolled myself for the networking and diploma course in networking and hardware, which was very rare at that time for a girl to go for that kind of a study. I was the only one in the team to study that. And then I started career in the networking engineering field, right? So what happened is, when I was being interviewed, just because my concepts were clear, I could answer the questions of my interviewer, who was the really talented technical person. He hired me. When he hired me and he reported that, hey, we are hiring a lady as a network engineer. So everybody in his team was male. And they were like, what did you do? You are hiring a lady to do our networking job. She will ask us to carry the net, routers and large firewalls and all the network devices. She will ask us to lay the cable. But I never gave that chance to them. I worked with them for next 2 years, and I did all by myself. Even if I couldn't carry, I never said, hey guys, can you help me? But they used to come forward to help me. So that's how I started my career in networking field. Then I joined Wipro. I had been fortunate enough to have a men who identified my, wish to go extra mile and, do everything that it comes on my way. And that's how I had a lot of stuff that I have in my portfolio that I can take a pride in. I was the first person to lead a project where we had built the security solution, security operation center for Apple computers, because we use their the open source solutions and then built for that. And that's how I started my initial days of career. One thing that I have seen is, if you are ready to do what it takes to do your job, the whole universe comes to your help.
Right.
Then even if men who you think that they probably are not happy to you to be successful, that's not true. You find the right men also to be on your side. You find right women to be on your side. Like I mentioned during my introduction call, right? I have a disability that makes me go extra mile to make sure that I am among one of you, right? And that's why I just make enough good causes, because I believe in cause of life, and I believe in that if you do good, you get good people around you, and that's what have been happening. I do a couple of things wherever. So I worked in a service industry for a long time before I joined a couple of companies where I was the director of their security environment. So I worked for Wipro almost like 14 years. I worked for Cognizant. And one thing I made, whenever I am in a customer facing job, right? Because I'm a customer facing job, not just the security team is my friend, the whole department, whoever comes, as soon as I enter the office premises, I just make sure whether they are from HR or any other department or application, I will make friend everywhere. That made my work much easier, because you can understand that when you are in cybersecurity, people hate you for putting controls around different things. Second thing, what I did is I will always take ownership. So even if, say, my customer comes and tells me that, hey, your server team did not do this, or your other team did not do it, I would say, don't worry, let me know what is the problem. I will go and fix it. So if you have that kind of attitude, people love you. The reason I am just going off the lead from all the previous women who spoke about the technology and stuff, because I'm telling you the functional and process related challenges, sometimes we feel it, and how I go from one level to next level and become the apple of your customer, which is very rare to become, right? And I will tell you, Sumit, what happened is when I left Cognizant, I was taken to the another company just because the customer went to the new company and they wanted me to work with them. So this kind of scenario happens very rarely because people know you are a go-getter. So for me, nothing is impossible. I believe that every problem in this world have a solution, whether it's a behavioral issue or process related issue or technical issue. And you are seeing now even AI coming into the picture, solving a lot of our problem with just typing your problem on the desktop. So I think this is the world where we need to go extra mile. That's what I would say. Whether you are like me or like anyone else, it doesn't matter. You need to work hard. You need to be you should be persevering to the problem that you are solving. Like I asked the first question to the Miss Bakshi, right? And she did mention the same thing. If you think that somebody is stopping you, never give up. Just keep going there and you will find a way. That's all I have to say, Sumit.
No, thank you. I'm going to come back to your art and your motorcycle and the zen of living, but we'll come back to that again.
Sure. Thank you.
Lisa, when I said that, I really meant it. I think behavioral health is something that's been plaguing the world, and I think all of you are truly doing some God's work there at Jewish Board. And you personally have been in the healthcare industry as someone who's been promoting this for the longest time. Would love to hear a little bit about your story from Macedonia, Albania, to New York, and everything else, Texas in between. Bessa.
So thank you so much for this opportunity, Sumit. And it's pleasure sort of hearing everybody's story. So I get sort of the perspective of kind of hearing everyone's life stories. And it's really important to have this type of representation. So when younger women look up, they could see all of these successful women and their life journeys that, like Maninder, your sort of perspective as far as getting married young at 20, I had the same experience. I could relate to that. I have 3 girls. So same sort of parallel paths. It doesn't matter which part of the world you come from, you experience similar challenges, but it's how you overcome them. And that is the true, sort of grid as far as where you need to be and where you need to go. As far as my journey, my parents were political refugees from Eastern Europe. My parents, they were both teachers. One was a professor. They lost their jobs. We had to escape. We came to the US. And then right as we came to the US, Eastern Europe was in a quagmire. So my parents were both very big advocates as far as human rights. That's one of the foundations that I grew up with. And I grew up with seeing as a child, both my parents lost their jobs and I had to sit in bread lines. Actually, I experienced it personally. So that built this grit in me to say, you know what, I want to do better. I don't see differences this way. I don't understand why we, individuals have to suffer. And I come from the same world as Mother Teresa. She's from Macedonia. She's Albanian. So it's sort of that background. I grew up with that. And when we came to the US after the war, I just had finished high school, and my background, like my father is in physics and mathematics, I had that, and my mother was more into the arts and sciences. So when you talked about the combination of both, I think it's really important for individuals to have the hard and the soft, components as far as their training, and also kind of use both of those muscles. I finished high school, I had more math and science. And then during that time, I ended up, enrolling in biomedical engineering at Rutgers. But I always, I did 3 years of engineering. I didn't have any representation. I didn't see that many girls that looked like me. I ended up going in a lecture hall where there was, a lot of men, a lot of people that didn't look like me. And after 3 years, I just didn't feel like I belonged. I think that's another thing. How do you, belong in a location? So I switched more into the human services, more into the healthcare. That's what I wanted to do anyway. But at that time, the war hit. So, I ended up going back and volunteering. I ended up putting, sort of a stop, went back, volunteered. And that's how my career started. I ended up meeting individuals in the ICRC and a few others that were doing work in the field. And they introduced me to this whole field of healthcare and mental health. And I kind of tacked on to those individuals. I came back, finished my degree at Rutgers, and then I followed a mentor to NYU, and she was also a medical anthropologist. I was really interested in sort of like how people perceive healthcare. What does that really mean? I ended up, coming back to NYU, got a degree in, social work, realized that was definitely not me. I was more analytical in my brain, ended up, going back, getting another degree in public health and then sort of health services. And then my career, I've worked throughout, primarily more in the tech arena. So it's interesting. So my education was meandering more into the human services, but I started out working at Bell's, AT&T Bell Laboratories, looking at queuing theory, which was very technical. So my brain was technical, but then on the other side, my interests were more social. All that to be said is that I think individuals need to have multiple interests, and sometimes they intersect. My career has been, happenstance of events. And I've worked both domestically, and I've had opportunity to also work in Afghanistan. I got called up. They're like, your background in linguistic, your background is sort of human services and healthcare. Would you be interested to do something, kind of support women and children, actually, education in Afghanistan? And I took the opportunity. So these opportunities were left field, and my colleagues were like, what are you doing? But actually, that gave me a different perspective on the world, and I had an opportunity to serve. After that, I ended up taking a position in Texas as their chief data analytics officer. And again, serving, individuals across the state of Texas, primarily in healthcare, which gave me sort of a state level mandate to look, how do you actually change healthcare at a, larger scale? And obviously now the Jewish board, coming back to New York, kind of looking at what can I do here? And I always see the intersection, as Ashima says, sort of technology and health are really important. And those are the tools that we have. And how do we use those tools, not only to improve our lives, but also to improve the lot in life for our kids and be a representation for us all. So as far as my background has been all over the place, my kids say around the world in 80 days in a lot of ways. But if we show up every day, if we present, and that's what they're going to see. And that's going to be important for everybody here, the new generations, that it's possible. And these women are definitely a representation of that. So thank you.
From Afghanistan, from Albania, you have crisscrossed the world. I'd take that any day from the humdrum of a life that we lead. So fantastic. And I'm sure you're going to tell your daughter accordingly. So very nice. Ashima, talk a little bit about the hits and misses, please. Something prescriptive that we can take away from your personal life, or things that you have seen in your career. And that could be what we would love all of you to cover a little bit.
Excellent discussion. I think some of those tips were pretty close to my heart as well, being a woman leader in tech. Sometimes I'm the only one, be it the boardroom, be it the technology, be it customer conversation. And coming from India has shaped who I am as a leader. And it gives me grit. But there's another word I use, it's called resourcefulness, or there's a Hindi word for it called jugaad. Right? We figure it out, right? And regardless of who you are in the room with, they could be anyone, but know that there's a superpower that we all have coming from a country like India, is that there's that resourcefulness, call it grit, an ability to figure it out. And many of the panelists cover that. And last week I was presenting at a forum, and two speakers after me were Jeff Bezos. And one thing that struck me was, in unfortunately the session was not recorded. This was one of the best talks I had heard. And one thing he did mention was the ability to figure it out and not giving up. That you will somehow have that belief that no matter what the circumstances you are in, and having a world leader at that stage also kind of deal with the same kind of doubts. So we are all human at the end. We all have same experiences, and that ability to hold on to your belief and say, you know what, I don't have all the answers today, but I'll get them. I'll somehow figure it out. So that would be my kind of advice. On the misses side, I would say taking risks earlier. I going out of your comfort zone. I've taken plenty of risks. If I were to give advice, I have two daughters, and I tell them take risks much earlier. I waited till I have a comfortable career, and always there's something to aspire to, another goal, and then I'll do that. Time goes by very quickly. Your career arc, the first few years is when you ought to be taking risks. I wish I'd taken more risk. Even coming to US to me was a big risk. I was, as I was sharing, I was in Delhi, and at the time my dad pushed me, and I was very scared of coming, not knowing the place in US. And I remember he told me, Beta, people are going to the moon. You're just going to Boston. So, that gives that perspective. And I often now remind myself and our daughters, our colleagues, like, whatever we are dealing with are bigger problems, or this could look very big to us, but we will solve it. So take those risks, figure out whatever that journey is, and take the first step. That's the hardest one. It will be the most daunting one, and then things get figured out.
Very, very nice. Ashima, two things. One, Jeff Bezos has been very self-deprecating, and he talks about it very similar, that when they were initially selling books, he had a brainwave. He said everyone was packing the books on the floor. He said, why don't we go ahead and get knee pads? And we'll get knee pads so that we can do all this. And a lady, slightly elderly lady beside him said, we could just have tables. So he thought he had this brainwave, but then he explains that we don't have the idea for everything. And our favorite quote that we often use in GS Lab Gabs is from Bruce Barton, when he says that nothing splendid has been achieved unless some of us believe that something inside of us is superior to the circumstances surrounding us. And as you said, Madhumita, the universe will conspire to make it happen. But we get caught up with our anxiety and guilty as charged all the time as well. Maninder, you had a great story, and I can relate to that so very well. And you were so open with that discussion. Life's hits and misses. How did Boeing happen? What worked? And how did you come into Frontier?
Yes. So Boeing, I had moved after I got married to Canada. And after spending about 9-10 months there, attempting to do the life of a married wife, daughter-in-law, and not really having much going on a day-to-day basis, I had actually started to cross the border every day from Canada to come to the US so I could work, because that was going to be my sanity. So after doing that for about 9 months after getting married, my husband and I decided we're going to move back to Seattle because there's more opportunities there. And our decision was based on actually starting a business. And we moved, started the business opportunity, didn't get some of the FDA approvals because it was related to some medical items. I ended up at Boeing through a contracting agency as a contract labor employee, working on RFPs, government contracts, negotiations. And immediately I went into, really being with the militants, the military, the government. So it really resonated with my upbringing, and I fit in working with the colonels. They're yelling, they're screaming, and I'm just jumping right in as a 22-year-old. And fast forward a few months later, I got pregnant, hadn't decided on the whole approach of, there's this thing called US medical care and I need insurance. and went through the approach of, well, there's this thing called pre-existing condition. I no longer can get insurance because I'm already pregnant.
Wow.
So I'm on my own now to pay for the bills. And it was a very difficult decision because everybody in my family was saying, quit, go back to Canada. You've got a great healthcare system there that you're already set up for, and you don't have to worry financially about anything. I could not get myself to do that. My parents, even to a point, my husband was starting to say, this is a lot. And I pushed through and continue to work hard and pay for those bills on a monthly basis, with that hope that there was that little hope I would get hired in. My son was born in December and I got hired in October, just in time. And I would say that was an integral part of my life. Had I made a decision at that point to not push back with family and move back to Canada, I would say my life would be a completely different than what it is now. And I pushed through, and that really is where it started. And having had a kid and then trying to have a full-time career, trying to go to school to get my MBA and starting another business, and then doing something in college for my thesis, I wanted to put that into action. All of these needed to happen. None of them were things I was willing to just put to the side. So I leveraged the family support to raise my kids to continue enhancing in my future and career. So
This is
if I had to say
fantastic.
words with that, I'd say we are all our own CEOs of our lives, and take charge. Know your worth. Know when you need to settle temporarily, or know when you need to move on. Strive to be that unicorn. And if you're not there yet, then continue to focus on getting there.
Where do you get this conviction?
What doesn't kill you makes you stronger.
I'm drawing for you more than you can imagine, really. So thank you. Thank you. Erin, same thing. Again, hits and misses. And you've done some fantastic work at T-Mobile, and you had a most mercurial CEO. It'll be interesting to know the sprint, the North Sprint. How did you manage all that, and kind of juxtaposition that with your personal life?
Yeah. We've talked about taking risks, and I think absolutely here at T-Mobile, having a leader that we had with John Ledger, and how he changed our brand and, revolutionized the industry, was truly inspirational to be a part of that journey. Again, having been with the company for so long, when I started, it was voice stream. Not many folks had a mobile phone at that point in time. So I have been a part of the ups and downs of this journey. So yeah, I think, for me personally, it was about, 2015, I had kind of reached a point within T-Mobile where I was kind of at a crossroads, where I had spent many years within technology, doing engineering, working on the network. But yeah, and again, another theme here is, it had the technical, but I had this creative itch. Something just wasn't there. Something was missing. And, I kind of was at this point, I had some other opportunities, but our CTO at the time, the leader, he gave me a challenge. He said, I would like for you to go lead or create an innovation program. I didn't have resources. I didn't have a budget. And this was completely something new for T-Mobile. And I was leaving a very large team and kind of a very clear organization that had a vision and what you needed to do. So I took this risk. I decided to stay on within technology to build this program. And knowing that, you have the top leadership trusting in you and believing in you, but they couldn't tell you what to do or give you the direction. I had to believe in myself. And I had to take the risks. I had to fight for budget. I had to get everybody to see my vision, to execute against it. And it was challenging, and there were moments where I, questioned myself, and was this the right thing? Did I make the right choice? But again, back to the theme of today, it's that grit and that perseverance. And it was fascinating to see how this innovation program took off within the company, and the support I got, not only within technology, but across other leaders across the organization. And now I have created 3 incredible facilities that I designed, created, from my vision, was able to build. And again, not only impacting different lines of business in what we're trying to do at T-Mobile, but also having impact, outside of organization, whether it's through other organizations or working with other partners, and how do we impact other verticals. So I think it's believing, it's taking those risks. I will also say, you've got to advocate for yourself. Nobody's going to look out for you in your career like you will. And I think there were moments where I was naive, or have been naive on that. That, oh, I'll get promoted when I'm ready, or where they think it's my turn. No, you need to take charge. You need to fight. You need to look for those opportunities, and you have to believe in yourself.
I think there is someone who said it very well, that a mentor is not someone who's just mentoring you, but advocating for you. And I think you need to find someone who's going to be a bully pulpit. I think Nandita talked about it as well. Any points on that, Bessa? How does one look for a mentor? What does one do? And how does one really make one's advocate oneself? And then again, some hits and misses for you.
I mean, I think it's important. Family is going to be important. For me, that's really key, to have the support of parents and others as a foundation. That gives you at least some sort of backing that, yes, you can do this. For me, I've been very fortunate that not only I had mentors, but I also had sponsors. Having both mentors and sponsors. So a mentor is somebody that can give you advice and guide you. But having sponsors throughout my career that says, there's an opportunity, you should go apply. And I would say to myself, I would check all of the boxes 100%. I'm like, I don't know if I'm qualified. And I don't know who talked about that. I think, Erin, you were the one that talked about that. And I would make sure, and women do this all the time, that we've checked all the boxes, the 100%, then you apply. And there's plenty of, I would say to the younger women, you don't have to check all the boxes. 50% is good enough. And what I'm seeing with the younger generation, even with my daughters, is that they're taking much more risks than I did. I always wanted to make sure that, I had everything. So sometimes the mentors and sponsors are within your network, is really kind of asking for help and asking others that you admire and saying to them, the way I did when I was a young graduate student, reaching out to the psychologist, as medical anthropologist, and saying to her, I really love what you do. What is it that I had no idea what you did. Number one, I had no idea. But just getting to know her, and she was the one that introduced me through the network. She's the one that had kind of guided me throughout my career. And through her, I got introduced to many others, and my, career kind of flourished. And I want to do exactly that for younger generation of women. When younger women come to me, I'm like, I'm not only going to be a mentor, but I also will help you if there's opportunities to move your career forward, because that's going to be really important. Otherwise, if they don't have that, it's difficult for us to sort of go into new environments without that kind of support.
I'm going to ask this of Madhumita, but my overall question is, and I was actually writing to my colleagues this morning, extolling them to join us. And Maninder, you spoke about it. I think that's something that we don't need to carry as men. And more so if you're from the eastern part of India, your roles are defined. It's thrust upon you. It's entrusted upon you. Some of you, or some of us, are not very lucky to have evolved parents, Ashima, Erin, Maninder, Madhumita. How do you balance that? And if we are conditioned that this is a role one is required to be playing, and then there is other role of work, how do you kind of balance some of that, Madhumita?
So what I do when there are different role experiments, I'm not successful in all roles, right? But we evolve, learn, and see how do. So my best guide is my own self of thinking in such a way that what I would be expecting out of this role, and that's how I see what I should be doing in that role, right? Um, in many field in career, it so happened, like I will tell you a recent incident that I had been really tough on my daughter in initial day, like 2 and 3 years back, when she was about to hit the teenage, that, oh, you have to do this, you have to study this, you have to do this. And I thought that I can shape her life by guiding her to do certain thing in certain way. But I was forgetting that they are in this country, they are an individual. Actually, she is an individual and she might have her own vision to see her life. All we can do as a parent, that do this thing in such way, and I am with you in all time. I realized much later, but that was a kind of, again, hit and miss. What I would say is she learned how to live a life and take a bold decision, because she's a very bold girl, decision without my support on her. And that what I feel is now she's totally independent. She's just 14. She knows what she needs to do and doing it. And what I learned out of all this incident was that we need to let individual take their decision, and we need to just guide them, like how we track things, right? When we are project managing, we don't control the entire project input and output. We track it, control it, and sometimes we make the changes in the project based on customer requirement or any requirement that we foresee at later point of time. That was the learning I had out of this incident. So I would say, yeah, we need to adapt. We need to change ourselves. We cannot have a cookie cutter life. We have to have a free flowing life where we can keep changing, adapting, and making appropriate decision as we face the challenge.
A quick, rapid one. Comments that you would make, Ashima, lessons learned, or what you would say to your 20-year-old self?
I would say taking more risk, being bold, but do it as you're covering. Life is hardly a straight line, and don't let any setback, and there will be many. There will be plenty, there will be every day. I fail many times in a given day, in a given week, in a given year. But just the ability to get up and get going, leveraging that resourcefulness, that grit, that is your best friend. And another advice, I know we talked about the mentors. When people come to sometimes me or other leaders, be very specific about your ask. Otherwise, there's so many requests coming to so many of us. And what I've learned is when you go with a very specific ask, here's a situation, what would you guide? So leverage that mentorship and sponsorship very strategically. I think those are the two things I would say. And something that you said kind of resonated with me on the STEM and STEAM.
Yes.
For the young girls, so in Google, we have a program where we teach computer science to the schools and for the universities. And in the school program, not many girls showed up. I'm like, what's going on? Then we made it about writing a program to create an emoji and different ones, and the class was full. So we need to somehow make it interesting. It's not that boring drudgery that technology is painting out to be. So having that other angle of be the arts, be the problem solving, I think that's where we will attract more girls. And the girls who are listening here, and we need to truly inspire our young generation to have the seat at the table. I cannot stress that enough. There's existing biases. You've heard some of that on the call. They are already there in the data. And as these important conversations about artificial intelligence are taking shape, they're taking the center stage, not having our goals, ourselves on the table, we are painting a future which will be very lopsided. So this is a call to action. Whatever your roles are, be part of those conversations now.
I'll add something else as a question to all of you. and this is a vested interest. All of you represent some of the best companies in the world: Google's Project Oxygen, T-Mobile. Anything that we can take in terms of women empowerment, women enabling, women liberation, one or two that stands out, not to put you on a spot, maybe we can pick it up later, but if you can think of something, if you could share that with the team as well. And I think that'll serve Rachna and Sangeeta very well as well.
I would say the one thing that I do ask of my leaders and my team is keep your gender outside the room when you enter. Like, don't think men, and this is a more ask of anyone who's coming, leave your gender outside the door. We don't need women to be empowered. Women, but give them the space and don't put that framing. And that's an ask. It's an intentional ask. So when you enter the room and I'm talking, I'm not thinking I'm a female and I'm this and that. I am presenting my point of view as a leader. And that's the grace and opportunity and space we need to give to our colleagues, to our teams, and to not have this kind of bias creep in.
Very nice. Thank you. Maninder?
I'm trying to put it in limited words. I'd say for everyone, look at life as like you're driving on the road. Sometimes you will be on the freeway and sometimes the smaller roads. And at times both could get you stuck in traffic. And make the best of it and continue to enhance.
Very nice. Anything specific from Frontier that we could learn, Aninder?
I'd add more to what Ashima was saying, instead of looking at yourself and then from the male's perspective of looking at the women in the room as men versus women, look at ourselves as human beings and continue to focus on that. It is on a daily basis, I'd say 80+% of my meetings I'm in, I'm the only female. I don't see it that way. There are times others see it that way. And when they bring it up, I brush it off.
Got it.
Yeah,
Thank you.
that's not my focus, right? So, yeah.
Madhumita?
I would say that I will take your question at it. So you were saying that how do we encourage and support women empowerment, right? So from the beginning of my career, I have always identified, although I don't see them any differently, men or women, but if I see that a woman has a lot of positive attitude, but is struggling to come up forward, I provide them a support from back end, try to guide them, present them in front of the larger audience and guide them in the back end, right? So they are slowly growing themselves as a leader. And that's how I encourage women in my work area to become a leader slowly from the beginner's level to the at least my level. I would say I can guide them, and I have been successful in doing that, where people have identified those things and they have appreciated that.
Thank you. Bessa, and we'll end it with you, Erin. Bessa.
So I would say life is a journey, I think, to be as independent as possible. For me, I've experienced lots of things, even when I lost my husband, that if I didn't have this career, if I didn't have the education, and I tell my kids, I'm like, listen, you have to be self-reliant and take those risks early and often, because you never know. As Maninder said, you're going to hit roadblocks, you're going to hit many things, but as long as you persevere and as long as you stay on that path, you could achieve anything. So I would say to the younger generation, just, follow your dreams and keep at it.
Erin?
I would have to say, just to share a little bit about, what I've seen successful and what T-Mobile's doing is, I guess, first and foremost, what we're doing today. Let's talk about it. let's, not just keep it for the boardroom or when we're doing percentages and reports. I mean, let's have open conversations about the challenges that we have when we think about diversity and women in the workforce. And then creating, making it a part of our culture. It's a really big part of our culture here at T-Mobile. So whether we have, groups, national groups, regional interest groups that support DE&I initiatives or support women in technology, whether we have, panels and sessions and speakers, and then I carry that forward in what I do in my role. We mentioned our speaker series panel. Trust me, I try my darndest to make sure I've got at least one woman on my panel. Not successful every time, but I always make sure I try to carry that through in my role in my program. So again, I think it just make it a part of the culture.
Thank you. Thank you. It's kind of about time. I'll invite Rajeshri Jog to do the vote of thanks. But these events are so important, believe you me. Someone had often talked about, and I relate to it, said diplomacy is a lot of air. To which someone answered, think about your car driving down the road without air in the tire. So these serve tremendous value. Even if 1, 2, 3 of your ideas have sparked something amongst 5,000 of us and some of our clients and some of our ecosystem, we've served the purpose. So I really want to thank you, and it's been an utter privilege, and I'm taking away a lot from this. So Nandita, Ashima, Maninder, Erin, Modhumita, Bessa, thank you. And thank you, Sangeeta, Rajalakshmi, Rachna, for doing this. Rajeshri Jog.
Thank you so much. This has been a pleasure. But
Thank
Rajeshri,
you.
please, over to you.
Yeah, absolutely. Wow, what an incredible panel, and such lovely female leaders, and absolutely enlightened to hear from all of you about your professional and personal life journey. We did start with Nandita's keynote today, which was super, super inspiring. Thank you, Nandita, for doing that for us. Whether it is Maninder's, be fearless and be independent motto that got her into ambition of flying with Boeing and then Frontier, or whether it is Erin's be passionate about what you do attitude that naturally put her into the leading position for 5G innovation with T-Mobile, Ashima's be independent and be self-reliant approach that put her into an amazing leadership in Google, or it is Madhumita's incredible story about how she overcame her personal challenges by using a nothing is impossible and also always be positive attitude that got her into cybersecurity initiative with Inglewood, or Besa's story about never give up and also be kind and passionate that naturally made her a leader with empathy. I think all these inspiring stories have been super, super incredible, and that's what makes women those superhuman beings. I'm very, very fortunate to have, been a part of this discussion. I do personally feel very fortunate to be working with GS Lab GAPS, who not only strongly believe in this initiative of diversity inclusion, but also, sincerely are invested in that. And we have our own leader, Sumit, leading this and hosting this panel that says it all. So thank you, Sumit, for doing that. Once again, thank you, ladies, for lovely stories, inspiring session, and incredible. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
We'll end it with 2 of our dancers, Netra and Harini, their interpretation. And once again, thank you, everyone. And I hope to invite all of you to visit us in Chennai and in Pune. And it'll be an honor. Thank you again.
Thank you, everyone.
तथा तरिगिडदम था थत्ति तक्कडदम गिडदम था गिडदम था तंगडदम तत्ति तंगडदम तरिंगिडदम तकतिन तकिटतुम
Takatina takita tum takatimi takita takatimi tatin kita tum takatakatina taum takachurna tatin takachurna tum tatum tatum tatikita tatin kita tum tatin kita tum ta
Thank you again, everyone. Have a beautiful day and
Thank
happy
you.
Women's Day. Bye-bye.
Thanks.